Welcome to Reading the Bible Together and to Genesis chapter 45 and the stirring, almost conclusion to the astonishing epic of Joseph and his brothers. And with chapter 45, we get the big reveal, as they say on TV. So let's see what happens. It starts this way. Judah has just offered himself in exchange for Benjamin, representative of the proof that the hearts of the brothers have changed. They're no longer eager or willing to sacrifice one of their own, even if that one is the coddled, spoiled youngest. Now remember from a few chapters back that Jacob implied that while losing one of his 10 older sons would be painful, losing Benjamin would be fatal to him. That couldn't have been hard for the other brothers to hear. And remember from chapter 43 when Joseph also spoiled Benjamin by giving him 5 times the portion of the others, attempting to amplify the favoritism which Benjamin always enjoyed, and making his plan clear that Benjamin would be his representative among the other brothers. Now, what will they do with the spoiled one? Will they sacrifice him as they have done with Joseph so many years before? But no, they stick together. And even more, Judah offers himself in exchange for Benjamin's life. All possible tests have been passed, and now we read, "Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, 'Have everyone leave my presence.' So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, and he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it." Now, this is the third time we've heard about Joseph weeping. I can't help but picture him in full Egyptian traditional garb like you see in tomb paintings, wearing kohl, K-O-H-L, kohl, the ancient Egyptian mascara around his eyes. And now there's black streaks following the tracks of his tears. His face is a mess. Previously, he'd fled from the room in order to have a good cry, but now he's overcome in the presence of his brothers. His sobs so loud that everyone in the house and even those walking by heard the commotion, and news was soon passed to Pharaoh. Well, Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Well, of course they're terrified. First of all, here's the most powerful man in Egypt next to the Pharaoh himself, and he's losing it big time. That'll shake you up. Secondly, he reveals himself to be Joseph, the brother they had sold into slavery and left for dead. And in their minds, it wouldn't be at all surprising if Joseph's next words would be to summon the guards and have them all cut down on the spot. "I am Joseph, your brother, and you're the ones who tried to kill me, and now I'm going to kill you." So what happens? They immediately flee to the far corners of the room, and Joseph has to gather the reluctant and terrified family together. We read, "Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'Come close to me.' When they had done so, he said, 'I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt.'" Well, they still need convincing apparently, and Joseph provides the one piece of insider information that only they and he would know. They sold him into Egypt. It must be him. It may not look or sound or seem in any way possible, but it must be him. And now Joseph is finally able to put it all into proper context. He must have been reflecting upon it all for some time, and maturity and the lessons learned by his brothers must finally have made it clear. All of us tend to see better when looking back rather than looking ahead. And so here we go, the central explanation, the reason behind this whole saga. Joseph tells them. He says, "And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there's been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there'll be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt." Well, let's unpack this. Joseph first says that the brothers are to stop their self-recrimination. Now that Joseph has had his revenge, don't trouble yourself any longer, he says. Because it turns out that this was all God's plan being worked out through them. And what was the plan all along? Not to take Joseph's life, but to save the lives of countless Egyptians who would have starved, as well as to save the lives of Joseph's family back home, the lives of the tribes of the covenant. They may have thought the plan was to get rid of Joseph, but God's plan was much, much bigger than that. God sent me ahead of you, says Joseph. Not only it was part of the plan that Joseph would end up in Egypt, but that the brothers would too, as revealed by Joseph's earliest dreams. Joseph then gives us a time scale of the events. They're in year 2 of the famine, meaning that they've had the 7 years of plenty. And so as a result, it's been 9 or 10 years since Joseph has been elevated to his position. We know that he spent 2 years in jail after the baker and cupbearer dreams. We don't know how long Joseph had been imprisoned prior to their arrival, nor do we know how long it had taken him to rise to prominence in Potiphar's household, not to mention to catch the eye of Potiphar's frustrated and hungry wife by swinging his ankles in the marketplace. I can't let that go. We're just told it was some time later. Now, thankfully, there are other clues in the text. Joseph is introduced to us back in chapter 37 as being 17 years old, a perfect age to really start annoying your family, because at 17, you know everything, and you're not afraid to say so. I know that I was particularly hard to take at 17, and I was a source of great annoyance to my older sister and to my brother and his wife. Later, we're told that Joseph is 30 when he's made vizier of Egypt, my age when, like Joseph, I became a father and began to understand what it means to take responsibility for the life of another. Now, with 9 or 10 years having passed since then for Joseph, 30 years for me, now Joseph is a man of 40 or 41. Small wonder the brothers had thought him long dead and failed to recognize him. But more importantly, notice how long it has taken this plan of God to come to fruition. This is why I bring all this up. More than 20 years. It took more than 20 years between the time his brothers, Joseph's brothers, threw him in that pit, and we find ourselves here. Closer to 25, really. We want things to happen right away. God takes his time. Well, back to our story, where Joseph now says, "But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Well, that line is packed with theological significance. To preserve for you a remnant, to ensure the survival of the people, is a major theme throughout the Old Testament. The word remnant, used for the first time here, is used over 60 times in the remainder of the Old Testament, almost always in reference to the preservation of a core group of the faithful. The people of Israel will persevere no matter how dire the situation, no matter the armies coming in to conquer, or God forbid, the holocausts to which they had been subjected. A remnant will persevere, a remnant will survive, the covenant will continue. Second half of that sentence, to save your lives by a great deliverance, doubtless refers to the immediate salvation of the family of Jacob through the miraculous rise of Joseph and the hoarding of the grain. But instantly, however, it may also be looking forward to the as then yet unseen day of the deliverance, not to Egypt, but from Egypt, from which we're about to read in Exodus. The phrase great deliverance will forever be associated with that event, the Exodus, rather than this one. So Joseph may unwittingly have been saying more than he knows. Joseph wraps it up. "So then it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh," meaning primary advisor, "lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt. You brothers of mine are off the hook. Beginning to end, this was God's plan. Neither you, through your plot to do away with me, nor me and my astonishing rise to power, are the result of anything but the hand of God." That's a mature statement. And it took that long for Joseph to make it. So the brothers are instructed, no tricks this time, no strings attached, to return home to Canaan, gather the clan, bring them all to Egypt while they will be provided for, and make it snappy. And in culmination of it all, we read, then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin embraced him, weeping. He kissed all his brothers, he wept over them. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. Reminiscent of the union between Jacob and Esau, there's lots of forgiveness and hugging and hanging on the neck and tears. And here's such a nice line, so easy to miss. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. One of the very first things we'd learned about the relationship between Joseph and his brothers weeks ago was from chapter 37. They hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now, you might have forgotten that line, but the story did not. The healing of the breach is now complete. The brothers are peaceably talking. Well, Pharaoh adds his blessing to the plan, tells them the red carpet will be rolled out upon their return. Don't worry about a thing. Just bring yourselves, wives, children, grandchildren. Don't forget the old man. And how about this promise? I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, says the Pharaoh, and you can enjoy the fat of the land. Now, there's an offer you can't refuse. Carts loaded with extra goodies for Benjamin. Some habits are hard to break. Joseph is waving goodbye, and he adds the very final significant words, don't quarrel on the way. What did he mean by that? Was it a humorous jibe? Hey, no fighting on the way home. Now that we're all united as family, don't blow it before you even get home. Well, I don't know if that's humorous or serious. Let's face it, loading Benjamin down with extra gifts was maybe not the best way to promote brotherly harmony. Or was he telling them once again to not go through a series of recriminations about whose idea it was to sell Joseph in the first place, since Joseph made it clear that it had all been God's plan? We'll never know, but the line has always intrigued me. The great commentator Rashi, when I talk about these rabbis that I consult, these ancient rabbis, Rashi is one of the greats, and he adds to this. Rashi thinks the plain sense is that the brothers should refrain from blaming each other for the sale of Joseph and for defaming him so as to make him hateful to them. Not bad advice in the light of past experience. That's the comment of Rashi 1,000 years ago on this 2,000-year-old story. Don't quarrel on the way. We'll never know, but the line has always intrigued me. Well, the brothers, in fact, do make it home. They don't quarrel on the way, and they break the news to the despondent and incredulous Jacob, and we're told their father Jacob revived. He says, I'm convinced my son Joseph is alive. I will go and see him before I die. And on that happy note, I will leave you with the promise that the next chapter, 46, will be all good news. Mostly. And we'll see you then as we read the Bible together.